Imagine inheriting a massive, just a completely continent-spanning empire.
Oh, yeah. Ultimate power, right.
Right, exactly. Absolute unquestioned power is just going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You'll have the wealth, the armies, the luxury, all of it right at your fingertips.
And you just, say no thanks.
Yeah. Instead of taking it, you just choose to walk away and step into a literal meat grinder. You voluntarily enlist in an academy where your chances of plunging to your death on day one or being incinerated by a dragon before lunch are well above 50%.
It is a wild career pivot, to say the least.
It really is. Why would anyone make that trade? Today, we're looking at a prince who did exactly that. Welcome to the deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us.
We are peeling back some really fascinating layers today because, when you look at a massive fantasy universe filled with apocalyptic battles and fire-breathing dragons, it is incredibly easy to get distracted by the sheer volume of the noise.
Oh, I am absolutely guilty of that.
Right. We all are.
If you've been devouring Rebecca Yaros's Empyrean series, and we're talking the universe of Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and heading into Onyx Storm, you're probably focused on the visceral frontline action.
It's just human nature to watch the fireworks.
Exactly. But our mission today is to ask you to look past the fireworks. We're unpacking a brilliant piece of literary analysis from a dark commentary blog called Hellions Book Nook.
Yeah, the blog is great.
It's so good. The entry is titled The Prince's Gambit, Aaric's Hidden Agenda, and it forces us to shift our focus to Aaric, the Prince of Navarre, and the much slower, significantly darker game he is playing in the shadows.
Which is a massive departure from the way he is initially presented in the text.
Mm-hmm.
The blog doesn't just offer character study, it proposes a complete paradigm shift.
Totally.
We aren't looking at him as just, another cadet trying to survive a brutal military college. We are exploring the theory that he is a highly calculated, deeply embedded political operative.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you're anything like me, when you first see Aaric show up at the Basgiath War College, your brain immediately categorizes him into a very familiar, comfortable box.
Oh, for sure, the classic trope.
Right. He gives up his crown, he ditches the royal guards, and he enters the deadly training of the Writer's Quadrant. On the surface, it just screams rebellious royal.
It's the well-worn trope, The privileged heir who is tired of the suffocating rules of the golden cage, deciding he wants to prove he can bleed and sweat, just like the commoners.
Yeah, the whole I want to be a real boy routine.
Exactly. But Hellions Book Nook just tears that assumption apart right out of the gate.
Mm.
And when you examine the mechanics of the world, that trope completely falls apart.
It frankly defies basic logic. If you just want to get away from an overbearing father and a stressful royal life, you abdicate and retreat to a quiet countryside estate.
You go to the Riviera.
Right, you take a vacation. You don't run away from home to enlist in the absolute most dangerous high-casualty infantry unit imaginable.
No, you really don't.
You are putting yourself in an environment where cadets are routinely murdered by their classmates in their sleep. Or, thrown off parapets.
Furthermore, if you think about it, the political structure of Navarre relies heavily on the royal bloodline projecting strength and invulnerability.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Well, yeah, a prince dying a gruesome public death in training isn't just a personal tragedy. It is a geopolitical disaster for the crown.
It makes them look incredibly weak.
Exactly. And Aaric understands the weight of that. What's fascinating here is how the blog frames his mindset upon arrival. He didn't walk through those doors with wide-eyed, naive idealism, hoping to find himself.
Not at all.
The core thesis is that a man who knows the truth has nothing left to lose.
A man who knows the truth has nothing left to lose. I have to say, that line actually stopped me in my tracks when I read the source material.
It's a heavy line.
It really is. It shifts his entire presence from an act of childish rebellion to an act of cold resignation, or rather a calculated pivot.
Yeah, a massive pivot.
He looked at the throne he was supposed to inherit and decided it was already a lost cause.
It sets the stage for a character who is operating on a completely different plane of information than almost everyone else around him. He isn't at Basgiath to escape his reality.
Right.
He's there because of the horrifying reality he already uncovered.
Which begs the immediate question, right? What exactly did he uncover? What kind of truth makes you walk away from absolute monarchy?
You have to look at his childhood for that.
Yeah, to understand that, we have to examine his upbringing. Because he didn't just grow up wealthy. He grew up inside the central nervous system of the Navarre's propaganda machine.
He had unrestricted access as a royal. We are talking about the deepest, most insulated circles of leadership and, crucially, the royal archives.
The belly of the beast.
Exactly. He spent his formative years watching the scribes operate. And in Navarre, I mean, the scribes are the ultimate architects of reality.
It's wild to think about how much power they hold. Like, they operate on the principle that if you physically control the historical record, you control everything.
Literally everything.
If you can erase a battle from a book or omit the existence of an entire city, you completely dictate the present behavior of your citizens.
They manufacture compliance by controlling the narrative. But Aaric wasn't just consuming the sanitized, published history lessons given to the public.
Right, he was behind the curtain.
Growing up in the archives, he saw how the sausage was made. He saw the suppressed field reports, the hidden ledgers, the actual terrifying mechanics of how his family's crown maintains its grip on power.
Through just systemic generational deception.
Exactly.
I am going to push back on this, though, just to play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
If you have that elite access and you clearly see that your family's government is corrupt, why abandon the seat of power?
Okay, I see where you're going.
Right, because if I'm Aaric and I want to fix things, I'm playing the long game from the top. I'd smile, play the good son, put on the crown, and purge the corrupt scribes and reform the system once I have the absolute authority of a king.
It sounds good on paper.
Why isn't that his play? Isn't running away just letting the bad guys win?
I see the logic there. But if we connect this to the bigger picture that the blog lays out, we realize that the system is completely immune to reform from the top.
Okay, immune how?
The throne itself is a trap. Think of the government like a massive skyscraper.
Okay, tracking with you.
The public sees the shiny glass windows, but the steel beams inside the concrete foundation are completely rusted through. You can't fix structural failure by electing a new building manager.
So you're saying the political rot goes so deep that the king doesn't even really control the machine anymore? The machine controls the king?
The scribes and the military generals built this specific lie generations ago to consolidate their own power. If Aaric takes the throne, he is immediately beholden to the factions who require that lie to maintain their wealth and status.
Oh, wow. So they'd just take him out if he tried to change things?
He would be forced into complicity just to survive his own court. By abdicating, he is actively refusing to inherit a fatally poisoned chalice.
But it's not just a moral objection, is it? Like, he's not just keeping his hands clean for the sake of his conscience. There is a literal, unavoidable ticking clock forcing his hand right now.
Yeah, the real threat.
He knows this metaphorical skyscraper is about to collapse.
The Venin.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because we need to talk about the actual mechanics of the Venin threat to understand his strategy.
Yeah, they are not your average bad guys.
No, they aren't just a standard enemy army that you can fight to a bloody stalemate at the borders.
They represent an existential crisis to the planet's magic itself. I mean, the Navarre's leadership has spent centuries building magical wards to keep out the venin, pretending the threat beyond their borders doesn't exist.
Out of sight, out of mind.
And brainwashing their citizens into believing they are perfectly safe.
Oh.
But the venin don't just kill people. They literally drain magic from the earth.
Which means the government's entire defensive strategy of hiding behind magical wards is mathematically unsustainable.
It's completely doomed.
It's a ticking clock of resource depletion. If the venin drain the magic that powers the wards will eventually fail. You can't propagandize your way out of a monster that is eating the very soil your walls are built on.
Aaric has seen the math. He knows the wards will fail. And he knows that when they do, the public trust won't just fracture, it will instantly shatter.
Total chaos.
The citizens of Navarre will realize they have been lied to for generations, left utterly defenseless, and the government will completely implode.
The military will panic, the civilians will riot, and the royal family will be targeted. So if he knows that a total societal collapse is a mathematical certainty, his presence in the writer's quadrant takes on a chilling new context.
It really does.
He isn't there to learn to fly or to fight for his father's doomed regime. The blog argues he is basically acting as a sleeper agent in his own kingdom. He is gathering intelligence for the aftermath.
Consider the sheer logistical nightmare of trying to gather that kind of political intelligence while surviving Basgiath.
Oh my gosh, yeah, just staying alive is a full-time job.
Right, he's enduring brutal combat trials, severe sleep deprivation, and constant physical threat, all while secretly evaluating the power dynamics around him.
Taking mental notes on everybody.
He is analyzing the command structure, figuring out who is blindly loyal to the crown and who might be flipped when the truth about the Venin finally comes out.
But again, I keep coming back to the location. Why the writer's quadrant?
The only logical choice.
But is it? If you want to survive a looming apocalypse, why embed yourself in the military branch that takes the highest casualties? Why not join the infantry? Or, I don't know, become a healer?
Because the writer's quadrant holds something no other branch of the military possesses. It offers the ultimate uncancelable leverage.
Which is...
Dragons.
Okay, break that down for us. Why is a dragon uncancelable leverage in a political sense?
Because dragons operate entirely outside human law and human hierarchy.
They just don't care about our rules.
Exactly. I mean, a human king can order a disgraced prince's execution in the royal court, and the guards will carry it out without hesitation.
Right.
But a human king cannot execute a bonded dragon rider without answering to a massive, fire-breathing apex predator that does not respect human crowns.
Good luck arresting a guy with the dragon.
Bonding a dragon grants Aaric an untouchable kind of political and physical immunity.
Ah, that makes perfect sense. He is legally and physically removing himself from his father's jurisdiction. The crown can't touch him once he bonds.
Nope.
And more than that, if the civilian government falls when the Venin breach the wards, the military, specifically the dragon riders, are going to be the only ones holding any real functional power.
He is ensuring he is on the ground floor with the exact faction that will matter when the political structure implodes. The Venin threat is accelerating the timeline, and Aaric is securing his seat at the table for the New World Order.
It changes absolutely everything about how we read his scenes.
It really does.
When you go back through the books, every time we see him doing standard, grueling military drills, he isn't just sweating it out. He is actively evaluating the board.
Which creates this brilliant, stark contrast with the characters we usually spend all our time focusing on in the Empyrean series, namely Violet and Xyden.
So what does this all mean for the larger narrative? Because Violet and Xyden are entirely focused on the borders. They are fighting the immediate visceral battles against the Venin.
They're in the thick of it.
They are trying to keep their friends alive day by day, hour by hour.
They're entirely reactive to the crisis in front of them.
So if we use a tactical analogy, if Violet and Xyden are the sword and the shield, fighting the literal fires on the front lines, sprinting around, trying desperately to keep the walls from being breached, then Aaric is the structural engineer, sitting quietly in the basement. He's completely ignoring the noise of the battle above him. He's just running his fingers over the castle's blueprints, finding the exact demolition points for when the time is right.
I would take that analogy even further. He isn't just looking at the blueprints. He's actively testing the basement walls while the battle rages above.
Oh, testing for weaknesses.
He's trying to figure out which load-bearing pillars are made of solid concrete and which ones are just cheap plaster that will crumble the second the wind blows.
Wow.
A structural engineer knows that holding the outer walls is completely irrelevant if the foundation is made of sand.
He recognizes that the external war against the Venin cannot actually be won until the internal rot of Navarre is dealt with.
Exactly.
You can't win a war of survival if your own military leadership is making tactical decisions based on preserving a centuries-old lie rather than fighting the actual enemy.
This deeply hidden agenda, this incredibly long, patient game, elevates him from what many readers might dismiss as a secondary character to arguably one of the most dangerous people on the continent.
Think about the terrifying combination of assets he holds.
That's a lot.
He has the political pedigree and legitimacy of the crown, the lethal combat training of a dragon rider, the hidden historical knowledge of the scribes, and absolutely zero attachment to preserving the current regime.
It is the ultimate insider threat. He knows exactly where all the bodies are buried because his own family buried them, and now he is securing the military capability to dig them all up.
But pulling this off is near impossible. The blog spends a significant amount of time in a section they call the interrogation room, breaking down his endgame.
Yeah, the endgame is tricky.
Because if Aaric is indeed the architect of this internal demolition, what happens when he actually pushes the detonator?
This raises an important question. Does Aaric actually hold a viable map to a new government? Or is he just another casualty waiting to happen in the chaotic war for Navarre's soul?
Because it's one thing to identify the demolition points in the basement. It's a completely different thing to blow the foundation and not get crushed by the building when thousands of tons of stone come crashing down on top of you.
The historical precedent for what he's attempting is incredibly grim, even looking at our own real-world history.
Oh, for sure. Revolutions are messy.
Revolutionaries often successfully tear down a corrupt system, only to be immediately destroyed by the violent vacuum of power they created. Aaric is playing a massive game of chicken with a collapsing empire.
The timing has to be flawless. I mean, if he moves too soon, Before the Venin threat is absolutely undeniable to the public, the crown simply frames him as a traitor and executes him, dragon or no dragon.
Yep, he's just a traitor then.
But if he moves too late, the Venin wipe out the entire kingdom anyway, and there's nothing left to rule.
That is the gamble.
Yeah.
That is the prince's gambit. He is betting his life that his quiet intelligence gathering and his calculated positioning will allow him to navigate the chaotic fallout.
But chaos is, by definition, entirely unpredictable. What happens if the writers he's embedded himself with decide they simply don't want a former prince leading them, no matter how much he rebelled against his father? What if they see his royal blood as a liability rather than a unifying symbol?
That's a very real possibility.
Which brings us to you, listening to this right now. What stands out to you in all of this? I really want you to think about how you view this character now.
It's a lot to process.
Do you see Aaric as a visionary, a master tactician, waiting in the wings with a comprehensive plan to save his people from their own corrupt leaders? Or is he a tragic figure, a guy who realized the terrifying truth way too late, playing a political game that is ultimately just way too big and volatile for him to control?
It's a brilliant dichotomy to consider, because if he is just swallowed up by the chaos, then his entire sacrifice, giving up the crown, putting himself through the psychological and physical horrors of the writer's quadrant, was for nothing.
Yeah, it becomes a noble but ultimately useless gesture.
But if he succeeds, he doesn't just survive. He fundamentally rewrites the entire geopolitical landscape of the Empyrean universe.
He essentially positions himself as the sole bridge between the old, corrupt world and whatever viable society comes next.
Exactly.
So let's take a step back and look at the massive journey we've been on today. We started with a setup that looked incredibly familiar. The cliché of the runaway prince trading his velvet robes for dragon-scale flight leathers, just because he was angry at his dad's rules.
But by applying the analytical lens from Hellian's BookTok, we stripped away that illusion entirely.
We really did.
We explored his upbringing in the royal archives, where he witnessed firsthand how the scribes weaponized history to maintain control over the populace.
We realized his abdication wasn't an escape. It was a highly calculated tactical withdrawal.
Right.
He saw that the kingdom's foundation was irreparably compromised, and that the Venin draining the Earth's magic meant the magical wards and the government itself were mathematically guaranteed to collapse.
And rather than trying to fix a doomed system from a trapped throne, he embedded himself in the writer's quadrant. Not to fight daily border skirmishes like Violet and Zidon, but to secure the uncancelable political leverage of a dragon.
And to gather intelligence on the specific military faction that will hold power when the civilian government implodes.
He transformed, in our eyes, from a rebellious kid trying to survive a deadly school into a lethal political operative.
The structural engineer quietly evaluating the load-bearing pillars in the basement, just waiting for the perfect moment to bring the whole rotten castle down.
It completely recontextualizes his presence in the story. You have to go back and watch him watching everyone else.
Before we wrap up this deep dive into the Hellions BookTok archives, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own.
Oh, this is the big one.
We spent a lot of time today talking about Aaric's plans for demolition, but let's think about the rebuild. If Aaric does manage to survive the collapse, and if he does hold the map to a new government, how much of the old corrupt foundation will he be forced to use to build it?
That is the ultimate question.
Can you ever truly build a clean, honest system from the ashes of a deeply propagandized empire? Or are you inevitably doomed to repeat the scribes' mistakes just to keep a fractured society from tearing itself apart?
It's chilling to think about.
When the fireworks stop and the smoke clears, someone has to sweep up the ash and figure out how to keep the lights on. And the terrifying part might be that Aaric is the only one with a broom. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.